Okay, we're live. Okay, great. Welcome. We are in Senate Institutions on Thursday, February 13th. And what we have on the agenda today are Department of Motor Vehicles. We're going to hear about the IT software update. Then we're going to hear from the Agency of Commerce and Community Development about housing proposals that are in the Capitol bill. And then we're going to have a walkthrough of S69, which we just received today. Okay. So we have our witnesses on the Zoom. Let us just introduce ourselves because I don't know if we all know them.
Senator Russ Engel, that's Sixth District.
Senator Joe Major Windsor.
Senator Rob Plunkett, Bennington District.
Senator Sam Douglas, Orleans.
Okay, and I'm Wendy Harrison, Chair, and I'm from Wyndham. So thank you all for being here, and I would expect Commissioner Collier to be our prime witness.
Yes, thank you for having me, Chair. And Sanders, thank you on this snowy day. And apologies I couldn't be in person. The whole school cancellations kind of threw a wrench into being in person today. Andrew Collier, Commissioner DMV for the record. I am here with Matt Kostick, our policy director at DMV, and he's going to run the slideshow for me. And we'll go over the DMV core modernization project with you.
Great. And is John Kelly with you or?
Yeah, sorry. I saw him there out of the corner, and John Kelly from ADS.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. And actually, I'll fill in some blank space here. One of the reasons, because we have had a fair amount of new systems, but one of the reasons we wanted to have you all in specifically is that we've heard that this is an example of a new system where the process and the result went well.
Yes, I would. We'll touch on that. Are you able to make that full screen, Matt?
So if there are processes or procedures or recommendations that you have for projects in general, that would be helpful. Oops. There we go.
Thanks, Matt. And if you can go to the next slide. All right. So approximately 3 years ago, the legislature allowed DMV to start the core modernization project. DMV is working with Fast Enterprises, which handled the tax department conversion prior to DMV, and I think they're on the docket for Department of Labor to upgrade that system as well. It's a really unique situation where we have an IT company that brings people into the state to do the development work, and they partner with the DMV staff, ADS staff, all on site at Berry City Place, and they're able to just be on site and work hand in hand together. And as you can see, the first phase was right on time and on budget. In the second phase, we are right on schedule for our November 11th go live date as well. So it's really unique, I think, because these are probably higher wage engineers and computer IT folks that come in state. They're renting properties. Their kids are going to our schools. Some are buying houses because some are going to stay full time here in the state for the length of the contract. So I think I just want to highlight that. That's a pretty unique situation, I think, for an IT project for any magnitude. As you can see on the slide, it's a typo. We actually have 14 DMV staff that are dedicated full-time on the project at Berry City Place. 3 years ago when this kicked off, we had funding to increase the headcount at DMV. So there's 14 limited service positions, and those in our FY26 budget are sunsetting for July 1st. So our headcount at DMV will be back down at 231 personnel. As you can see, there 8 ADS staff and 44 FAST team members working together at Berry City Place. Total cost of project, $104 million. It's split up close to 50% between the development phase and the maintenance and operation portion, which we will kick off here in November of this year. This is replacing a extremely old system, several systems actually, and we had information living in a bunch of old databases, Access 97, you name it, and to the point where you were having to train staff to kind of unlearn the new technology and try to find people that still had that prior knowledge base, which is getting smaller and smaller to operate these old mainframe systems. So this is kind of at the peak of when you could really do that change to a new system. Again, phase 1 went live last November, and the last phase 2, which will go live this November. We'll go to the next slide. This is just a breakdown of the expenditures. The only, I don't want to say only, but the only overage amount, not to minimize it, so a little bit of money. It's on that first line coming out of the transportation fund. There was a gap in cameras that are that the front staff would use to take pictures for individuals getting a license, and some scanners that are used for the scanning of IDs. And that was a cost. DMV was able to absorb that cost, but it was a small overage that did occur of $322,000. The rest of the project, as you can see, 72% expended through the development phase, and this is going to transition over to the maintenance and operation phase end of this year.
Commissioner, is it okay to ask questions as we go through?
Absolutely.
So what is going to be the annual cost from, I guess, is it 26 through 31? Is that going to be a straight operations cost?
So the remainder of so it's 51 million, well over 51 million for the development, and then it's 104 million total. So it's sorry, trying to do my math quickly in my head. 53 million spread out through FY 31.
So it's like 10 million or so, a little bit less a year. And
I apologize. I do have that number. I just don't have it in front of me.
Okay, and then so when you do look at those numbers, I would just be interested to know how the contract is structured for after 31. Because I would expect they would want to be paid then, because this is a cloud-based, right? Subscription.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, we'll go to the next slide. It's just a quick slide of we went live November 13th last year. The DMV closed their offices and it worked with the Veterans Holiday. So they were able to close the offices a day or two before, and it allowed the staff to fully train up on what the new software was. And it allowed, what had to happen was the data is always flowing. So if you still have customers coming in to your location, you need that static, you need a static point to stop so you can get the correct data to transfer over on the kind of your last tranche of data to go over. So DMV closed for a day or two. It allowed that data flow to kind of stop. You get that picture to transfer that last little bit of data over. And it rolled out after November 13th quite well, actually. So that is our plan going into the second phase. Our plan is to close for I think about 2 days into the veterans holiday, and then we'll be fully open to the public with all the new services active. Go to the next slide. And this discusses what the first phase was, which handled vehicle services. Really some notable changes that happened. You can now go into the DMV, and instead of going in with your paperwork or check and waiting 5-6 weeks to get your title in the mail, now you can walk in and we're able to complete that transaction start to finish. And you're able to walk out with your title, with your registration, as long as you have the correct documents or in those items. We're now able to handle everything in one transaction instead of sending customers back home and Vermonters waiting for those items to come in the mail. Matt, if you go to the next slide. And then the last phase focuses on the driver services, which is on the individual, the licenses, and combining kind of the back end services onto a single platform for the DMV staff. Can you go to the next slide, Matt? And again, this is going to tie in the multiple systems that used to exist into one system for registration, licensing on the back end for DMV employees. It also allows that single point of service for Vermonters on their MyDMV website, so they can manage their licensing, their registration, single point of checkout, make appointments, and manage all those, and it's all handled in one place now, so you're not jumping around. And that is kind of a very high overview of this project. I know, unfortunately, the project lead for DMV is recently had a baby, so he would have had significantly more information to provide you. But I'm happy to take any questions, and happy to. And I've had experience in state government, coming from Department of Liquor Lottery. We had the big $150 million lottery transition that occurred. And I think these are great projects to highlight kind of the complexities of the data that's out there, and hitting your timelines, as this project has done, is impressive. I think when you're converting such old data that we have and having to get it right for several reasons, being able to come in time and on budget, I think is extremely impressive for the breadth of what this project does.
It's great. Yes.
Well, thank you for this presentation, Commissioner. A couple of things come to mind kind of immediately is customer satisfaction and how have you tested that, and also use for employees. Have you tested that before trying to launch this, or even saying that this is the system that we want to go with?
So historically, I wasn't here when this first launched. I know just anecdotal things from my staff.
So we just do for anything that goes wrong, since it wasn't you.
No, so kind of anecdotal things from my staff that's come up is when this first launched, there was an apprehension with with the DMV staff. It's a completely new way of doing things. We have a lot of long tenured state employees at DMV, and change is hard. Once they got into the system and started using it, it's been a complete buy-in now. They're really excited to get this last phase because they're right now operating in different systems, and it'll allow transactions to flow smoothly between start to finish now, once this second phase is completed. Sorry, what was the second part of your question? And it was the customer side. Sorry. And customers, I have yet to hear anything negative come up from customer side. I get a weekly list of metrics that are fantastic to look at and judge kind of how things are going. I would say we have, I think since this has gone live, there's been a small increase in the amount of time a customer or Vermonter is in the DMV office at the counter. But I want to notate that's actually a good thing. That small increase in time means that they're walking out with everything, their transactions completed start to finish. And it goes back to, instead of being in there for 30 minutes and now you're waiting 5 weeks for a piece of mail, now you're in the office for 40 minutes, an extra 10 minutes, but now you're walking out with all your documents. And it's not a significant increase by any means, but if you're looking at metrics, it's a small increase in that time that someone's there. But again, we're able to complete that transaction and get folks on their way. I'd also highlight the efficiencies that this system has done for the DMV. So previously, if I'm in Springfield at the DMV, that staff used to have to mail documents to Montpelier to complete transactions. And that was a burden. We're paying postage, just the amount of paper that's being moved. Now we're able to scan within the system, get those items scanned in. And now in our budget, we're actually showing a $420,000 decrease in postage because it's just less transactions we're having to do via the mail, and what I would call more old-fashioned handling paper through a process. So now one staff member can handle the transaction front to back, whereas they used to have to jump around to different sections within the department. So we're finding those efficiencies, and there's certainly going to be more efficiencies to come as we get this last phase rolled out and really work out the benefits.
Well, I got one more question, and probably the most important thing is when do I get my Senate plates?
Yeah. Those are coming. We have about half of them. I just saw them yesterday when I was in the office. Half of them are getting ready to go out. It's an area that
he's good. He's on it. He's good. That's Joe.
It's an area, to be honest, it's an area that we are looking to improve upon. We are one of the last states that continue to do a mechanical printing of license plates. It's a very labor intensive. You have to stop the press, literally change out the dyes to make new plates, change the coloring of the lettering. There's new ways of doing it, and we're hopeful in hopefully the short term that we can make some positive changes and get some new plates developed and cut the wait time.
Fine. Other questions? So I have a question about data privacy. We're talking about that in this committee now, and I recall that there was some issue a few years ago with DMV records, and we don't need to speak to that, but can you talk about how you made sure that people's records are kept private in this process?
So anyone that's utilizing or access to the PII data, those are members of the department that have to pass a background check and to be able to have that access to the PII data. So as a department, that part hasn't changed. We continue to, strictly maintain who has access to that data, and monitor and continuously monitor who continues to need to have access or not. And that's just general department practice. Overall, I think with any state IT project, there's very specific language in there for the vendors to follow and meet those thresholds to be able to operate within this type of environment. So it is something we talk about quite a bit and something that we, hold to the highest value, because as everyone's data point, no one wants to get that out, including me. My family has that data, so we strongly and forcefully make sure we're following what needs to be followed with those.
Great. Thank you. So you folks have?
I'm good.
All right, so then I guess if you wouldn't mind sending us the financial, just the cost over the next 5 years and future costs, that would be terrific. Thank you very much. I mean, thanks for your work. Thanks for being here today. It's such an important department because that is a function that probably 95% of Vermonters visit you personally. So it's terrific that you still have live people also. Yeah, it sounds like you've done a good job of combining access to people and a functional IT, which is really hard to do.
Yes, I think we like to brag that we touch Vermonters before the department tax, because we get driver's licenses and permits. So we see, I think, a large swath of Vermonters come through.
Well, thank you for your work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Okay, so we are ahead of schedule.
Is he coming out on Zoom?
I think Alex might be here.
I think Alex is planning on doing it person.
Yeah. You know what? Let us adjourn until, let's say, 25 past. So we're here 5 minutes before. Okay. And if for some reason,
If shows up, just
I'll